I thought for a minute that was a beer.
No, no, it's just a very tall cup.
Yeah.
It's actually got coffee in it. Yeah, it's nighttime over here, so it's keeping me awake.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. As you might have guessed, this is our sixth scheduled hangout for the CMOT CMOOC, and this week we're exploring the specialisation section of a CMOT portfolio. So my special guest again tonight is Mr. Ian Upton, all the way from Coventry University in the UK. So great to have you here, Ian. And it's early morning for you guys.
And it's time zones, and I'm going to apologise in advance because it's so early here. I haven't had my breakfast yet, so I might be scoffing a bit of porridge as we talk.
Yeah. And we were just discussing just before we went live. One of Ian's specializations is creating a series called Light Bites. So he's actually modelling that here. He's doing some light bites while he's actually discussing with us, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I can talk more about that in a minute if you like.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just going to go into a little bit of screen sharing just to outline this week's section activity, and then we'll come back into the discussion. But Ian, feel free to pop in at any time and ask questions, clarify things. So
cool, I'll certainly do that. Just one thing that I will clarify, Tom, because I've noticed when we've been doing this before, and I don't actually, this is a general point when people are doing sort of webinars and things like that. It's the how do I get your attention? And so I know I've sort of, where you've been talking, I've sort of been going, oh, whatever, and it sounds very rude and I interrupt and things. The other way is I sort of wave. Is the waving all right?
Well, what I can do is I've got two screens, so I can put the video screen on one and my presentation screen on the other. So then I should be able to see you in my peripheral vision.
Brilliant. So I should be doing all this.
I'll just go into presentation mode now.
Cool.
So hopefully you're seeing.
Gosh, that looks pretty spectacular. Yes.
So yeah, here we go. So week 6, here's our WordPress blog for the CMOOC. Choosing a specialization. So this is kind of your area to really shine and talk about something you're really excited about, something that really motivates you and really gets you going. And I think this part of the portfolio for me was probably the most exciting part, being able to really emphasize something I love, something I really enjoy, something I think I do really well, and to emphasize that. So it's sort of, I guess, sort of thinking through what is part of your practice, particularly involving technology, that is different to other people. So everyone's going to have something different that they do compared to other people, even if it's just customizing something. And sort of really looking at these key areas here, these 4 key areas of how does your specialization illustrate a commitment to exploring and understanding the interplay between technology and learning. Number 2, how does it display a commitment to keep up to date with new technology? So in your specialization, how do you stay up to date? And then, of course, number 3, what do you learn from your colleagues? So it's about collaboration. Even if it is a specialist area for yourself, how do you work with other people in a team, and how do you learn from them and get feedback on what you're doing? And number 4, commitment to communicate and disseminate effective practice. So going beyond perhaps what you do face-to-face to people, to perhaps publishing about it or talking about it at conferences or presenting it online or any way that you're getting it beyond that sort of small group. So that's the lightning overview of this week's section. You can see in the discussion forum on Google+, we have got one example that we posted there. I did a very quick ad hoc interview with one of our paramedic lecturers. He's actually a first-year lecturer, so he's been on Twitter for quite a number of years as a practicing paramedic, and he's now starting to explore how Twitter could impact on his education for his students and their professional network building. So an interesting little interview there with Hayden Drake, so shout out to Hayden. And of course, our project bank is slowly growing. We've got quite a number of contextual statements that people posted in there now, operational issues, sections, learning and teaching, wider context. We've only got 1 for collaboration and communication. That's a little bit, sad. We'd like to see a few more there. And we have 3 for choosing a specialization and 1 for the final week, which is future plans. So just encourage people to share their ideas in that project bank. So let's just go back to discussing with Ian. So I'm just stopping the screen mirroring there. And Ian, seeing as we've got you there in the hot seat, What do you think you would put into your portfolio as a specialization, and why?
Well, it's actually really useful having just seen that web page, because as you were going through the different criterias, it really sort of helped concretize it. I mean, I can talk about this now. Is it possible, Tom, for you to show a web page for me
Yeah, you should be able to
with a
actually, Ian.
screen?
So if you just
Yeah, can I? Because I'm not
yeah,
that
if you
used to the Google thing.
so
So
when
I've
you
got a
mouse
web.
over to the left on your window,
Yeah. Oh, on the left. Sorry, I've got it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
sort of a control bar should pop up.
Yeah, I've got chat. Oh,
Yeah,
screen share.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'll
Click
have
on
a go.
screen share.
And if it
Yeah,
all
you
goes
should just be
horribly
able to
wrong.
choose your web browser and push the window you want into it.
Okay, so your entire screen or application window. Okay, we'll do entire screen. Share. So this is a bit bizarre now. I'm sharing my screen there. So can you see that?
Yes, I can. It says light bites.
That's right. So this is what you're looking at here is in Adobe Spark. If you want to look at it properly, which I'd advise you do, have a look at it on your phone, and the address is bit.ly/lightbytes. And this was something I'm doing in terms of specialism. When you first mentioned it, Tom, I thought, oh, that doesn't sound, very techie or whatever. But having looked at the criteria, I think what was interesting about it is that the sort of thoughts that I put into this, if you like, really do tick some of those boxes. So if I just talk about this very briefly,
Yeah,
and again, I can't see you at all, Tom, at the moment. So
that's right. I'll just button when I feel like
just butt in. Just go for it. But yeah. So I thought if I just talk about this, so I first created the Lightbite series probably about must have been 3.5 years ago, and it was a response. It was a bit of a naughty response actually, because my manager at the time said, "Oh, Ian, we need to have some Moodle training," and there was this sort of expectation, and I was going to sort of have this room full of academics who probably have been sent there, you need Moodle training kind of thing, and they scurry off because they've been told to do it.
They're in
And
the
then
dog box. Yeah,
that's it, putting them in the room and sort of facing these people, these poor old people who would then be, I don't know, have sort of geekiness inflicted on them for about 3 hours, where we reveal all the wonders of Moodle, and then they disappear off. And 6 months later, they'd be required to, they do something on Moodle, having forgotten the whole lot. And so, hopefully, I'm painting a picture which won't be too unfamiliar with people. These sort of classic sort of technology training sessions. So what I thought I'd do is introduce light bites, and the sort of everything's in the title really. So, and the picture that I'm showing here, which was Technology Tasters for the Classroom. So I literally got a room up in our disruptive media learning lab, which was great because I could take all the tables and chairs out, which was quite important. And I'd invite people up and say, okay, 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to explore a technology together, and then you can decide whether you like it or not. So if you just scroll down, or if I just scroll down on here, you can see I'm just about to set up the new summer program. So there's no dates
oh,
on
I
it.
like that one. Death by PowerPoint.
That's really cool. I so enjoy that one. And if yeah, okay, and that's really challenging how we use PowerPoint as a technology. Because in a way, it's probably the most ubiquitous technology we use in the classes, but very rarely we think about it. Anyway, so death by PowerPoint, this kind of thing. And we introduced some fun ones, so there's some obvious ones there, but Creative Commons, that sounds as dull as dishwater, but actually it's very powerful because it's a great way of getting resources. And then we sort of branch out and we do stuff with selfie sticks and things, which is good fun and interesting technology. And we have also sort of branched out into non-technology. So now we work with an actress to help you develop presence in the classroom. Anyway, I'm diverting. The idea with these is literally, I say to people, bring a cup of coffee, bring yourself, bring a laptop or a tablet if you want to join in, or if you don't, that's absolutely fine. But then in terms of the format of the sessions, it's actually very deliberate. I invite people into a room that's got no tables and chairs. We then do a little exercise where in the room I get people to sort of share their experience. So I say, one wall is technology expert, the opposite wall is don't know anything about technology. Then the other walls, the opposite walls, is I know everything about the piece of software or application or whatever we're doing today, or I know nothing. And I get people to stand in the room where they feel that their expertise is. And that's really important, because what it enables me to do is really get the group sort of talking to each other, and we all sort of share generally that we probably don't know a lot about it. Everybody's in the same boat, and that's okay. So that's a nice bit at the beginning. Then I split people into groups. I just give them a number. And of course, then what happens is that it means that I create perhaps 3 groups. We probably have up to 20 people in there. So 3 or 4 groups, 4 or 5 in each group. But I do it in such a way, because they're standing in the room with the expertise, I'm able to produce mixed expertise groups. So then everybody sits down. I might do a very quick introduction to a technology. So with something like Adobe Spark, I say, hi, Adobe Spark is something created by Adobe, blah, blah, blah. It's really easy to use. Let's have a go. And then literally set a challenge. And so what the groups do separately is that they explore the technology and have a play with it, and they'll have a task to do. So I think the Adobe Spark, I usually get them to do something like create a short presentation, a short Spark on what would happen if they won the lottery. So it's a bit of fun, and because it's all lecturers, most of them would be handing their notice into their boss and sailing off into the sunset on a cruise ship. But it's great fun, and they're sort of motivational projects. They're things that are meaningful and whatever. And we do that, and I go around and I sort of act as a bit of a, add provocations, literally sit at the table. I don't attempt to teach. I just say, oh, have you seen this, or have you tried that, or blah, blah, blah. And the group are still exploring it. And so after about 20 minutes, they've got a nice little application. And then what I do is I get each table to share the results of what they've done using bring your own device up on a big screen, which is something that people haven't really experienced a lot in the university. So it's the first time they've seen that. And we all have a good smile. But then the big thing is we then have a discussion about how useful do they see it in the classroom. So I'm monologuing a bit here, Tom. Is it all okay?
Yeah, sounds good. I was just sort of thinking as you're talking, I mean, this is really good stuff, but the how do you think your Lightbite series would fulfill the 4th criteria, which is a commitment to communicate and disseminate effective practice? Is the way you think that you could actually broaden your reach? I mean, what you're talking about is very much a face-to-face sort of
Yes.
workshop environment, which is fantastic. But how can you disseminate that further?
Oh, how long we got? Yeah, it's very true. I mean, face-to-face format, what's nice about it is it works. Over the 3.5 years, we've had absolutely fabulous feedback. And here's a little irony, but I will come on to answer your question in a moment, Tom, is that because I do a series and they're 45 minutes, what tends to happen is people come along, they go, oh, I feel safe here. This is all right, isn't it? Not challenging me. And then they come to every flipping one in the series. So rather than it's me sitting them in a room and them doing 3 hours where, I probably bore them to death, they'll come along and engage over 10 weeks and are doing about 10 hours of stuff. In terms of taking it further, it is very face-to-face, but we've had some good fun in the sessions. I've run into a little bit of a bureaucratic wall here, which is the technologies we're allowed to use. But at one phase, I was actually periscoping the sessions. Right. And so I had some interns working with me. And that was quite good fun, because in a way we needed 3 people to pull it off. But in effect, we had a periscope person in the room, as I used to describe them. And I would just treat them as anybody else in the room. And they would sit at a group and engage with the others and all that kind of stuff. And that had real scope. It sort of really whooshed out there. I think towards the end we were hitting 60 people dropping in and things. And I don't know whether we didn't really question it too much, because the university turned around and said we weren't allowed to use these applications while they were deciding about some strategic stuff. I think now we probably can, so I'm hoping to start it. But so we didn't really get the chance to get too much feedback on it. But people were joining in, and I do suspect anecdotally that the experience was quite powerful. So, for example, it would mean for everybody here on this CMALT, in theory, I could run one of my Lightbites that you could all come and experience.
Yeah, well, that was what I was thinking, Ian, was why not do a Lightbites webinar series?
Yeah, I could
so
do,
obviously
actually.
If you've got some Periscope, they're archived already. So
yes.
You've got a few there, but I was just thinking it'd be great to have, Ian Upton's Lightbite series on webinar.
On the web. And the most bizarre one we've had, there's a guy here who's experimenting with robots. And so he's got this thing that looks a bit like is it a Segway? Those things that you stand on with two
Oh, yes.
wheels. Yeah, it looks a bit like that with an iPad on the top, and basically people come in. You can see the face of the person controlling the robot on the iPad, and they can talk, and you can hear them. And then this sort of little device trundles around the room as this sort of independent entity, and that was bizarre. But we had some people from China join us for one of our webinars. That was quite good fun, and they were trundling around. I think they struggled a little bit, more to do with the control of the robot than actually the sort of content, but that was quite good fun. And it was what was amazing was how quickly the other participants, the physical participants, accepted this sort of remote entity in the room.
Certainly, loads of scope there for deep reflection and thinking about lots of issues.
Very much so. If I'm not going on, I can tell you the last little bit that we're experimenting with now, which has had a lot of positive feedback, and that's actually introducing digital badging. So with the next series of Light Bites, I'm introducing a digital badge, but being quite careful with it, in that the requirements to attain this badge is that people have to come along to at least 3 sessions, okay, on anything, but at least 3, go away and use it in their own practice in some way. So, if they go and do something with selfie sticks or whatever, and then come back and tell us about it. So we have a special session where people all sort of show and tell and mark each other, have they fulfilled the requirements, been to 3, thought about some technologies, actually actively put it into their teaching in some way, and, had some experience they can feed back. And if they do that, then we can give them a Coventry University accredited Light Bites badge, and that has really gone down well. We've still to run the first proper iteration of it, but where we've asked people would they want to engage with that, people have not just sort of said yes, they've been extremely enthusiastic. So again, that's another way of sort of pushing the system, so people can whack something up on their LinkedIn and genuinely sort of say that they've engaged technology in some way.
Yeah. So I suppose in some ways it's kind of like a mini CMOLD, isn't it? Which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Well, that your Light Bites badge could be part of your evidence for your CMOLD portfolio.
Yes, actually, yeah. Wow. So you're making me think. How do I switch back to not screen sharing?
Flick back to the right again. The control panel will pop up, and then I think this.
I've got it.
Yeah, it just says stop screen sharing.
Stop sharing. There we go. Ta-da! And hopefully we're back. Sorry, that felt a bit of a monologue. But if anybody wants to look at it more in detail, if you have a look at the bit.ly Light Bites link, then
that was very good. I enjoyed that, and I think that idea of why not have a bit of a webinar series of Ian Upton's Light Bites, but make it international.
Yeah,
there you go. So something to ponder.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I think I think we've kind of covered the briefly the specialization area and given people some ideas. And I think certainly what you've talked about, Ian, would be a fantastic, I think, part for your CMOP portfolio. Talk about that Light Bites and the potential to take it even further.
Yeah. So just a quick clarification there, Tom, because I think a point you've just pulled out from me there, it is a very physical, small group kind of activity. I have had ways of extending it out. Is that a kind of requirement of this area, the specialism, or is that just something that you're chucking in because you're seeing it as interesting for helping develop me?
It doesn't have to, but I guess what I see, one of the big potentials of technology and teaching and learning is to take away those barriers of the physical space.
Right.
So to enhance what you're doing within a specific context and space, but also to be able to take what you're doing and what your participants experience beyond that to, an international experience. And that's something that you can't do without the technology.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's all reflection. That's what you need to reflect about and critique.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, it's been great chatting with you again, Ian. And we have one more week of our CMOOC left, and next week it's future. What does the future hold, and what's your ideas for the future, and what are you planning? And so you might have a week to actually think about what you might do with Light Bites.
That'd be very cool. Yes, I shall give that some thought, actually. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, well, I think we'll stop the broadcast here, and just encourage everyone to share their ideas in the Google Plus discussion forum, and once they've got something in their portfolios, to once again share that in the project bank. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to Ian.
See you next